A few weeks before Christmas, my ex-boyfriend came up to me. Ex because a few years back he basically wasn't very kind. He went off with somebody else, he split. But he came up to me anyway and said to me, my brother is in hospital. He's gone in with a lung infection. And I said to him, I will pray for your brother. And he said, don't bother, don't believe in all that rubbish, don't give me that crap. And basically he's always been that way towards me, and so is his family. But I said, don't worry, Tim, I'll pray for him anyway. So I prayed for his brother, and a week later he came up to me again and he said, well, your prayers are not working because my brother's slipped into a coma now. And I said, quite boldly, I said, my prayers will work. He said, well, it's a bit late for that, don't you think? He's basically, while he slips into a coma and while he's in a coma, he's suffered some kind of a stroke, and now the doctors are saying he's brain dead. And today we're all going up to the hospital to basically say to turn the machines off, and the whole family's going up. So he's trying to mock me and make me feel bad. And at this point, I've been a little bit worried because I've just said my prayers will work. But then I thought, no, I've got to stand by my prayers. So, and as I was sitting there talking to Tim, I thought, no, trying to listen to God, and I felt him saying, go pray for him. And so I stood by my word, and I said, yes, Tim, my prayers will work. Do you want me to come and pray for your brother? And he looked at me and he thought, well, and I expected him to say, don't bother, but he didn't. He said, well, I suppose it can't do any harm now, can it? So I sort of nervously thought, well, okay, right, I said I was going to do this, God, so I'm going to do this. Got in the car with Tim, and we was driving up to the hospital, and all the way there I was thinking, what was you thinking? Because I was thinking, now I'm going to pray for a man in a coma, but not only in a coma, he's brain dead. And they're going to turn the machine off today, so I was thinking, oh no. So I was thinking, God, I really need you to help me out on this one, because I've just gone and done it. I said, I'm going to pray for him, go to the hospital, he's brain dead, he's in a coma, and they turn the machine off. But then as I said that, I felt God say to me, you go pray, I do the rest. It was enough confidence, because I'm not a very confident person when it comes to praying for people. So we got to the hospital, and when we got there, we went into intensive care, and I see him laying in his bed with all these machines around him, and machines that are making him breathe, his lungs to work, and I just see him staring into space. And I looked at him and I thought, hang on a minute, he's not in a coma, because I could see some sort of activity behind his eyes. I was thinking, he's awake. So I thought, do I dare say that? So I said to Tim, your brother's awake. And he said to me, no, he's not, he always looks like that, he's in a coma. And he mocked me and he said, oh right then, Andrew, that's his brother's name, if you're awake, squeeze my hand. And his brother squeezed his hand. And I looked at him and I said, I told you God would answer my prayers. And he looked at me all sort of, well, you don't know what this is, this is, might be coincidence and all this. I said, yes, he's awake, Tim, he's awake. And I was quite happy at this point, but then I started to think, oh, I came up to the hospital to pray for a man in a coma, and now he's awake. I've got to pray for him while he's sitting there, and he hates anything to do with God. And he would, if he could speak to me right now, he'd be ordering me out the room and so forth. And so I was thinking, oh no, why did I say I was going to do this? And I was getting all scared. And I thought, no, I'm going to do it. And Tim's like, Andy's going to him. Heidi's come up to the hospital to pray for you, and I'm going to leave you with her for a bit. And off he went. And I was thinking, alright. So I was looking at his brother and I was talking him through what I was going to do and how I was going to pray for him and that. And I could see behind his eyes he didn't want me there. But I thought no, so I took him by the hand and I prayed with him for a little while. And I read to him from the Bible, and I did what I came there to do, because that's what I thought God wanted me to do. Then doctor came in and I said to him, he's awake. He went, yeah, I know. The doctor said, are you family? And I went, well, not really. And it was like he never heard me, because he just said, oh, well, you ain't going to believe this, because this morning, you know that all the family are coming up to turn the machine off because he's brain dead. Well, when we came this morning, he's awake. And he said, well, we can't really explain this, but he said only that it's like a miracle, and they were so surprised by it, and I was like, really? He's awake? Yeah. And yeah. So I was quite excited by this point, and I said, so what's the chances of him making a full recovery? And they said, well, I wouldn't get your hopes up that high if I was you. He's brain dead, he's probably going to be a vegetable, he won't walk, he won't talk he probably won't remember a thing, and he'll probably be much like this for a long time. It's going to take months of rehabilitation. If anything, I wouldn't get your hopes up high. And I thought, no, God's better than that. I think, no, he will do all these things and he'll be well. And then his family started descending on me in the hospital. I was like, oh dear, here we go, fireworks. Because I thought they was going to start moaning and shouting, but instead, Tim comes back in with his mum and his brothers, and oh yeah, Hayley's been up here praying for Andrew. And instead of shouting and screaming, they came up to turn the machine off, and now their chance for their brother, their husband, their dad, he's alive. And all the children, and they don't have to. Instead of shouting, they embraced me and thanked me that I prayed, because there he was, the miracle. He was just sitting there, like, we couldn't do much, but he was alive, and he didn't have to turn the machine off. And Tim kept saying to me, to his mum, because his mum was all crying and saying, Mum, don't get your hopes up high, yes, he's awake, okay, but you don't know what's going to happen, how much of his faculties are going to be left. And I said to his mother, he's going to be fine. And Tim said to me, don't tell my mum that, you're getting her hopes up high for nothing. I said, yeah, but God's going to heal him, he's going to be fine. And then when I went home that day, I was determined. I was thinking, right, how long we got? It was about a week before Christmas. And the doctors had said months, if anything, any change. And I wanted so badly, I prayed to God. I said, well, if you can bring a man back from the dead, then you can bring him home in time for Christmas so he can spend it with his family, his children, and have a great Christmas. So for that week I was praying solidly that he would be healed and he'd be out the hospital in time for Christmas. And I told Joel as well, and he started to pray for him as well. And it was quite exciting. From then on, every little day he came off the machines, so he was breathing for himself. Then his infection was clearing, and each day he made a little bit more recovery. He started to be able to move and then speak, and when the doctors tested his brain again, they was like, well, we can't believe this, because he's not brain dead anymore and he's not a vegetable. He's actually going to make a full recovery eventually. So yes, it will be a long process, but yes, he's going to make a full recovery. And I was quite surprised by this. I was thinking, yes, this is good news. And so I kept praying. I think that every day he got a little bit better and a little bit better. And the day before Christmas Eve, I was looking after Jemima that day. That's Joel's daughter. Joel said to Tim, because he came round, we've been praying for your brother, he's going to be out in time for Christmas. And Tim said, yeah, right, okay, he said, because I'd been telling Tim that as well. He said, yeah. And then Susan was with Joel at the time. She said, what would it take to convince you that your brother, that you'll believe this miracle that happened? And Tim said, well, I suppose if he gets out in time for Christmas, that'll be a start. And then that evening, Tim got a call from the hospital saying his brother was going to be released the very next day, and that the hospital was so surprised by this miraculous recovery, they was calling the miracle man on the ward. And so the very next day he was going to be released. I had to go and see this for myself, so I went to the hospital to visit Andrew, because I wanted to tell him of what we've been doing and how everybody's been praying and how he's came out of this and so miraculously recovered. And I wanted to talk to the doctors to say, could the machines possibly be wrong, because you took 2 readings? And they said no, they can't explain it, there isn't a medical term for it, only that it's a miracle that he's actually coming home today. And he looked fantastic. He was a picture of health. He was so different from the man I see in intensive care with all the wires and the machines coming out of him, and he was like, he'd never been ill. I've never seen a man so perfect, and he was home for Christmas with his children, and he had a great time.